big challenge to UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, the first big challenge. But let's take a look at what exactly is this allegation. There are two sets to it, Abhishek. One is with regards to Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2, where there have been minor explosions that have taken place, but this is not something that's happened just in the last few days. As far as these explosions are concerned, that still remains a mystery. Sweden and Denmark have already responded.
Putin, Sunak, dono.
There have been minor explosions on Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2. But let's talk about what's really happened just about in the last 24 to 48 hours. They say that the Ukrainian drones were being directed towards the Russian Black Sea fleet. In fact, some of the minesweepers of Russia have essentially been affected because of the drone attacks that have taken place. Now, the allegation essentially being that these drones were directed by none other than United Kingdom. Now, that's the direct allegation that has been leveled by Russia with regards to the attacks that have basically taken place in the Black Sea. The Black Sea fleet of Russia basically coming under attack. Now, what we are being told is that it appears that it is only the minesweepers of Russia that has been affected by these drone attacks, and not really any of their carriers in the Black Sea, or for that matter, the Black Sea fleet. Now, with regards to the United Kingdom, remember, apart from when the allegation was essentially leveled by Russia, there is a response that has now come in from the United Kingdom. In fact, if I can quote what the British Defence Ministry had to say, and I'm quoting, Abhishek, Britain has basically denied the claim, and I'm quoting. They say that to detract from the disastrous handling of the illegal invasion of Ukraine, the Russian Ministry of Defense is resorting to peddling false claims of an epic scale. In fact, Britain goes on to say that this invented story says more about the arguments going on inside the Russian government than it does about the West. Remember, this perhaps has been, since the time the war began on 24th of February, the relationship between the West and Russia has deteriorated even further. It's worse than what we've seen during the Cold War. Important to point out here is that United Kingdom, after Rishi Sunak took over, remember one of the first few statements that were made is that the support that United Kingdom gives to Ukraine comes without any sort of condition. And that's exactly been the position of United Kingdom, be it under the tenure of Boris Johnson, or for that matter, even after Liz Truss. And the fact of the matter is that in terms of ammunition supply, or even for that matter, training of Ukrainian soldiers, United Kingdom has played a very important, a very crucial role. As a member of the NATO, what becomes very important is that United Kingdom, right from the beginning, even before when the war began, the kind of support that they have given in terms of defense capabilities to Ukraine, it's pretty much seen there. Also, the fact that a large part of the ammunition supply has also come in from the United Kingdom. Let's not forget, in terms of the missiles that were handed over by the United Kingdom to Ukraine, to the shoulder guns that have been given by United Kingdom to Ukraine. So there has been a massive support for Ukraine when it comes to from the United Kingdom. Not to forget, even the former Prime Minister of United Kingdom, Boris Johnson, had actually traveled all the way to Kiev. In fact, walked hand in hand with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky. So it's very clear the kind of support that has been given by the United Kingdom to Ukraine. But if you take a look at how Russia has essentially responded, this is for the first time they have openly accused a member of NATO participating in the war directly. There is no indirect charges, if I may say so. For the first time since the war began, there have been indirect references that have been made by Russia in the past, Abhishek, but this is very, very clear that this is for the first time a direct charge that has been leveled against a NATO member. Now, whether this is going to lead to some sort of an escalation, one will have to wait and watch. Because remember, for the Russians too, this has been a major loss. If you really look at it in terms of the purpose of beginning this entire war, and secondly, in terms of the area that is still under their control, it has been, for a country which has been militarily very, very strong, and there is no comparison between Russia and Ukraine when it comes to the military strength. For Russia, it has been a big setback. So, many military experts have time and again basically raised the fact that there should be some sort of an introspection. And let's not forget the claim that was made just about a few days ago with regards to a dirty bomb. In fact, in that case, we have seen the Russian defense minister speaking to his counterpart here in India, apprising India about about the possibility of a dirty bomb being used by Ukraine. Now, that's also an allegation that has been leveled without much substance to it. But having said that, what we are seeing, the development that has now taken place, Russia has certainly thrown the first big challenge to Rishi Sunak in terms of the first big foreign policy challenge.
All right, Shravan, this is going to be a story which is going to pan out over the next 48 hours. Russia cancelling the grain corridor deal and premising it on the attacks that have taken place in the Sevastopol area, where Russia says that British specialists were involved in planning, executing this attack. If I could go through the statement attributed to Russian Foreign Defense Ministry once again, it is explicit and clear. It says that it should be emphasized that the ships of the Black Sea Fleet that were subjected to the terrorist attack are involved in ensuring the security of the grain corridor as part of an international initiative to export agricultural products from Ukrainian ports. But the preparation of this terrorist attack and the training of military personnel of 73rd Marine Special Operations Center were carried out under supervision of British specialists in the city of Ochakov, Nikolaev region in Ukraine. According to the available information, representatives of this unit from the British Navy were involved in plotting, organizing and implementation of the terrorist attack in the Baltic Sea on 26 September this year to blow up the Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2 gas pipelines. So Russia not only blames the United Kingdom for today's attacks, but also says that on 26th of September last month, when the Nord Stream 1 and 2 were blown up, the gas pipelines supplying crucial energy to Europe, particularly Germany, they were blown up, and Russia now blaming the United Kingdom for both the Nord Stream 1 and 2 attacks on September 26 and the Baltic Sea attacks that took place earlier in the day, today at 4:20 a.m. According to the Russian Ministry of Defense, the Kiev regime carried out a terrorist attack against the ships of the Black Sea Fleet and civilian ships that were on the outer and inner road streets of the Sevastopol base. But what is important is that the British have denied it. A strong denial has come already. And if I could go through that also, it seems that according to the West, this has been done because the Russians wanted to get out of the grain deal, which was giving crucial sustenance to Ukraine, because Ukraine was allowed to sell excess wheat supplies that it has. Remember, Ukraine is the second highest producer of wheat in the world, and it was somehow, because of this international deal, sustaining itself with selling excess wheat. But now Russia's defense ministry, attributing this attack today to the Ukrainian forces backed by the British, has withdrawn from the deal. Okay, let me go to Shravan again. Shravan, Russia's defense ministry's statement is very clear that the Nord Stream gas pipeline attacks, as also the Black Sea attacks that have taken place today, they are carried out by the Ukrainians with full backing, planning, execution and support of the British, of their special forces, their specialists. And taking this opportunity, the Russians have withdrawn from the grain deal because according to them, the ships that were attacked today, though of course it seems not much damage has happened, but they were protecting or taking care of the grain corridor by which the Ukrainians were able to sell excess grains. You think this is going to snowball, this is going to escalate, given the first time that Russians have officially accused a NATO nation of getting involved in war? This essentially means that the British have attacked Russia. You think the Russians could use this as an opportunity, in fact, to declare that they are at war with the UK? Is Russia at war with the UK now?
Well, see, what's very important to highlight here, Abhishek, is that Russia has been looking for an opportunity in terms of passing the buck. Let's be very clear. This entire theory of dirty bomb that the Ukrainians were essentially trying to use is also something that has happened over the last few days. So there is certainly a pattern that is emerging. Now, what is exactly Russia planning? Really, predict at this point in time. But this comes at a time when there has been massive retreat from the Russian side, be it from key areas in the Donbas region. And if you talk about the areas that you were mentioning in terms of Mykolaiv, remember those are the areas which they wanted to capture, but they have been unsuccessful. They've been able to do in areas down south in Kherson, but they haven't really been able to, take over places like Odessa, close to the Black Sea. So for the Russians too, it has been a major challenge. Let's not underestimate the fact that the Russians have had to perhaps recalibrate their entire strategy, and that is the reason why even in strong areas like in the Donbas region, they've had to take a step back. They've had a massive retreat. And some of the areas closer to Izium, those are areas that have been taken back by the Ukrainians. Now, with regards to the support that the Ukrainians have got, there is no denial about the fact that the American involvement, or for that matter, UK involvement. There have been multiple reports suggesting that even the special forces of the United States as well as UK perhaps could be camping in Ukraine. Now, that's again a speculation in the realm of speculation. Nothing really to substantiate that. But it has gained currency over the last few months. The fact that yes, the Ukrainian soldiers have got massive amount of support from the United Kingdom and the US, but the trigger at the end of the day is in the hands of the Ukrainian soldiers. It's not American soldiers who are fighting the war. There has been assistance. There has been training that has been provided by US and UK, and there is no denial about that. Even the base that the United States has closer to Poland, and near the Poland-Ukraine border. And that's where the trading also actually takes place. So arms and ammunitions have been coming in. But, in fact, Ukrainians have been crying foul or, crying hoarse about the fact that they haven't got enough ammunition from the European neighbors. They've got large amount of support that has come in, mostly from the United States, with multiple packages being announced by US President Joe Biden. But what is essentially happening right now, as far as the Nord Stream is concerned, Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2, Sweden and Denmark both have carried out their own independent investigation. Now, Sweden and Denmark have basically come to a conclusion that yes, there have been minor explosions that have taken place, damaging Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2, but they haven't really pinned the responsibility. In fact, there has been a shadow boxing between the United States and for that matter, Russia, when it comes to Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2. It is Russia which has basically leveled the allegation that since the United States wants to supply LNG to Europe, that is the reason why the explosion was carried out, because this pipeline basically connects between Russia and Germany. So this was, the allegation essentially being that it is United States which has basically done it. On the other hand, when basically against Russia, they said that
we are joined by Elizabeth Braw. She's senior fellow of the American Enterprise Institute. She's patched on phone with us. Elizabeth, the Russians are clearly blaming the United Kingdom for the attacks that have taken place today in the Black Sea, and they have also said, in fact, that British specialists were involved in planning execution of the Nord Stream 1 and 2 bombings as well. You think that Russia is officially now at war with NATO?
Well, it's playing an extremely dangerous game. It's presenting these allegations without presenting any evidence and without presenting any proof. And there is a reason it's not presenting any proof, because there is none. This is something that this is a tale that Russia is cooking up to essentially, as you say, bring the UK into a very dangerous situation where it has to take some sort of action. And but it's extremely irresponsible and reckless to blame the UK, a country where the armed forces are constantly scrutinized by Parliament, and where the armed forces follow the rules of war, and where, in fact, such behavior would not be would just not be acceptable. to blame the sabotage of Nord Stream 1 and 2 on the UK, given the rules under which the UK armed forces operate, is not just immoral and unethical, but it's also extremely reckless, because the UK has done its best to stay out of this conflict, to support Ukraine with weapons, financially, but to make sure that this doesn't escalate into a larger war. And for Russia now to essentially provoke the UK is extremely reckless and irresponsible. And let's hope the UK remains as calm as it has until now.
Elizabeth, but it's an open secret. It's not even a secret, in fact, that the West has been supporting Ukrainian military effort, be in terms of war machine, be it in terms of expertise. So it's not really off the mark to say that the British specialists might be available to Ukrainian forces in terms of trying to understand how to take the war forward. Having said that, what's going to be the consequence of this development today? Russia has, of course, cancelled the international agreement in terms of evacuation of excess wheat supplies from Ukraine. But beyond that, you think that the war could escalate now in Europe?
I don't think it will, simply because the UK will do the adult thing and take this, hear this information calmly and not escalate in return. It is extremely regrettable that there is a country in Europe that keeps feeding lies into the public discussion. Russia is not the only country that has ever fed lies into the public discussion, but it's certainly doing so at an exaggerated speed these days. And as you say, it has just cancelled the grain shipment agreement, which is something that will harm lots of low-income countries around the world. And I hope those countries take note, because this is not this is an act of great selfishness by the Russians, when so many people are, especially in low-income countries, are dependent on that grain getting to them. So Russia is behaving in an extremely irresponsible way, and I hope that the countries that have until now remained neutral, because they were holding out hope that Russia would behave responsibly, that they now say that they now draw their conclusions from this latest set of actions by the Russians and say we have to put pressure on Russia to end this war, because if it doesn't stop, then it's going to pull us all down into the abyss.
Ms. Bro, do you see some sort of a pattern that is basically emerging? The fact that just about a few days ago, Russia made that sensational allegation that Ukraine perhaps would be using a dirty bomb. And now you see, for the first time, there is a direct allegation that has been leveled by Russia against one of the NATO members. Do you believe that Russia is up to something because they're building on this entire matter?
I think they're getting desperate. As your viewers will have heard, Russia has now cancelled its mobilization because it was going so badly. So it is Russia is getting desperate, which is why it's presenting, launching all these really very reckless activities or statemtions, and it's not a sign of strength, it's a sign of weakness. And unfortunately, when a country like Russia, or a country, I suppose, in any war, when it has its back against the wall, then it's more likely to try crazy schemes simply because it's got nothing to lose. I think we'll see more of this, unfortunately, and it's incumbent on the UK and other countries in the world, including India, to stand strong and let the Russians know that this sort of behavior is just not acceptable, because it's hurting not just the Ukrainians and not just other countries around the region, including Poland, which is hosting more than 2 million Ukrainians, but it's harming especially also low-income countries around the world that won't be getting the grain they rely on now that Russia has cancelled that agreement.
All right, that's Elizabeth Bro of the American Enterprise Institute telling us that Russia is being irresponsible in making the charges that it has on the United Kingdom. But fact of the matter is that This being so, this is the first time that Russia has officially accused a NATO nation of military intervention in the ongoing war with Ukraine, between Russia and Ukraine. Would that mean an escalation? That's a question that's going to trend all night, all day tomorrow, and we are going to keep close tabs on the developments there. There has been an official denial from the British, but the matter does not end there as of now. For now, Russians have stopped or put a blockade on the grain trade that was going on, or the grain corridor that was provided to Ukraine to sell excess grain, Ukraine being the second largest producer of wheat in the world. And that could create another round of supply shock around the world when it comes to not just wheat supplies, but dominoes on other commodities as well. Russia, remember, has also blamed the United Kingdom for having played a role in the bombings which led to the destruction of Nord Stream 1 and 2 pipelines, which were crucial energy lifeline for Western Europe, particularly Germans. Fast-paced developments taking place in Europe in the war. And Chavan, if I could come back to you for one more quick answer. You know, you were there for almost 2 months in Ukraine. What impact this is going to have on the war that is taking place inside of Ukraine? You think that the Russians are really going to choke them? And the recent reverses that the Russians had faced and the sort of victories that Ukrainians were getting, you think this could change on the ground now and that the Ukrainians could be on the back foot?
Well, in fact, studying this matter for the last several months put together, being on the ground also with a keen interest of what's really happening, I could say one thing, Abhishek, that this does not augur very well. Simply because this comes from a nation which appears to be very desperate militarily. The fact of the matter is that their plans haven't really gone the way it was. They had a plan A and a plan B in terms of the Battle of Kiev, and then, of course, getting the southern part. All of it hasn't really gone as per plan. And that is the reason why when military experts are essentially, or strategic affairs experts are essentially indicating that there is a desperation, there is a reason behind it. And it's very clear that, especially their entire plan of choking the entire Black Sea, which would essentially mean, suicidal attack on Ukraine, because you would have basically cut off large 60% of Ukraine's economy if you would have actually choked the Black Sea. However, with much national pressure, that was essentially worked out. Some sort of a corridor was created. Now that's going to have a direct impact. But just simply looking at what has happened over the last 1 to 2 weeks, it does appear that Russia is up to something. It does appear that they are basically building on a narrative. If you remember, before the war actually began on 24th of February, there was a narrative that Russia was trying to build before they actually declared a full-fledged, full-scaled war. Once again, it does appear that they're trying to build on a narrative. What is their real objective? That is not known. Whether it is going to be, are they going to settle with the area that they have already captured? And does that signal the end? And is there an end game? Not very sure. Whether they're going to come to the negotiating table, that's always been.
Right, Chavan. In fact, we'll keep our viewers up to date on this crisis in Europe. But for now, Russians clearly pulling out of an international agreement to allow grain trade to Ukraine because they believe that the British helped carry out those attacks in the Black Sea and, of course, in the Baltic Sea as well, targeting the Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2 pipelines. Ironically, the lifeline of energy for Western Europe, particularly Germany. Moving on, a short break. We continue with live and breaking stories on the other side.
the misuse of monopolistic positions by companies like Google, for example, to dictate terms and conditions which favor it. I'm talking specifically about the advertising issue. News publishers across India, across the world, we receive a tiny fraction of advertising from these companies like Google. After all, the news media is the cornerstone of a healthy democracy. Why aren't you looking at it closely enough? Are you thinking about it?
There is a need for a new legislative framework, and the government of India today is working on a Digital India Act which will replace the IT Act. India is increasingly becoming a highly creative space, and the monetization of all that is usually very one-sided because of the demand-supply imbalance.
It's raring for adventure, a fierce hunter. The new breed rises above all others. A new breed of SUVs, the advanced Grand Vitara, rule every road.
In a big development, the Cyberabad police has moved the Telangana High Court now. The police has submitted a remand copy against the verdict of ACB court order which released 3 accused who allegedly attempted to poach the case. Uddhav camp MLA Kailash Patil staged protest in Osmanabad over several issues of farmers. Extending their support, the farmers joined the Uddhav camp. Meanwhile, the protest turned violent as the farmers vandalized and attacked public property as well. Mega crackdown on the PFI continues in Kerala. The National Investigation Agency has now arrested 13 absconding accused in the case. The accused was absconding and hailed from Kerala's Palakkad area. New IT rules will have profound impact on intermediaries like Twitter, Facebook, YouTube and Instagram, making them accountable to users and Government of India, thereby marking the end of rules which framed by the big tech firms which see themselves as above the sovereign laws. In wake of the development, the IT Ministry will also hold a press briefing today. And for now, moving on to more news coming in from across the country. Taking stock of the incident, the DGCA has ordered a detailed probe into the cause and suitable follow-up action that shall be taken in relation to the flight operation with regard to the Indigo flight. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Civil Aviation has also ordered officials to submit a report into the incident after looking into it. The air quality of the national capital continues to deplete. Now, the latest
calling on stage Mr. Hardeep Singh Puri and Mr. Arnab Goswami for this fireside chat. Let's have a huge round of applause for the gentlemen as we look forward to this chat.
Thank you, Mr. Puri. You're very popular. I must say this, that pre-lunch, I was just telling Mr. Puri that usually, the audience thins out during the pre-lunch and the post-lunch session. Now, in our case, when you have Hardeep Puri as the pre-lunch session and Himanta Biswa Sarma as the post-lunch session, you don't have the problem. So a round of applause to him, please. He's a freewheeling speaker, and before I start, I want to tell you that he's my senior from Hindu College. And in Hindu College, you're either a senior or a facha, as they say. So I'm like a fresher asking you the questions, Mr. Puri. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. Anyone who's had the privilege of being grilled by you in Republic, on Republic, or in Times Now before that, knows exactly what he's in for, and that is what makes it more worthwhile.
Oh, thank you very much. I'll try my bit. A headline: ignominy of building the Indian Parliament by breaking the law. Another headline: bit by bit and trick by trick. Mr. Puri, they're calling you a trickster. Bit by bit and trick by trick, how the Central Vista became a reality. And one last one: Sitaram Yechuri. 20,000 crore central government money spent on the new house for the Prime Minister and other beautification schemes. Should I continue or would you like to start? Should I provoke you a bit more?
No.
These are the kind of headlines that you've attracted in the context of our... See, this is a news federation. In the context of the ongoing debate on fake news, etc., I'd like your response to this, please.
Thank you, Arnab. First of all, thank you for having me on your show this afternoon. I don't know whether this is pre-lunch or post-lunch, but I'm ready to be served here, Look, I've been a student of the false narrative for longer than I can remember. I've also written a book in which I deal with the issue of the false narrative. But I think what we are facing here is not a false narrative in terms of an alternate set of facts. Arnab, I really think what we are dealing with here is a motivated, not properly thought through set of attacks against the government and in particular against the chief executive, the Honorable Prime Minister, on something on which if somebody had introspected and reflected on it, those who are producing that false narratives can only be losers. Let me explain. All those quotes you gave, and there are many more that come to line. First of all, legality. My issue is who owns the land? The government owns the land. Where are government offices situated? In the capital city, many are situated outside and the government pays 1,000 crores by way of rentals. If the government owns the land, is it within its right to build or not to build? The answer is yes. So how can you say it is illegal? Then, lie upon lie. Now, first of all, I would be surprised if it came from people who are not educated or who are not aware of the environment within which they work. But let me share with your audience that I once appeared, and I think you had a clip on that there, when somebody brought to my attention a letter signed by 106 retired civil servants, amongst them former cabinet secretaries, amongst them former foreign secretaries. And the letter went on to say that the new parliament is being constructed because there is a feeling that the old parliament building is jinxed. Therefore, you need a new one. Then they went on to sign, put their signatures on that piece of paper which said, and Central Vista Avenue, what we now call Kartavya Path, is going to be completely destroyed because all the jamun trees will disappear, the green cover will be reduced, and Mummy, Daddy and Pappu will not be able to go for picnic there in the evening.
No, they said uprooting, why uprooting jamun trees for the Central Vista revamp is a terrible idea.
Now, I addressed that in the press conference and I said precisely what I'm going to say now. I said, ye kaun padhe likhe vidwan hai jinhone apna signature aise kagaz pe lagaya without either reading the contents or this thing. So it became fashionable to attack the government. So I took some of your colleagues, distinguished members of the Fourth Estate, to the Central Vista Avenue, what it was called then, Kartavya Path, when it was under construction. And I said, aren't you going to ask me कि वो जामुन trees जो uproot किए गए थे? So he said, हम आपसे पूछ नहीं सकते हैं because you're standing under one, full bloom. So from the Kartavya Path, not a single tree was uprooted. We replanted 101 acres of greenery. We built about, 19 kilometers of additional footpath. We built 16 bridges over the water bodies because the path, Kartavya Path, previously beyond the water bodies was not accessible. So all that is done. Now it's there for everyone to see. I have been traveling relentlessly. And I asked, what is the likely footfall going to be over the weekend on one day? It says 100,000 people. Now the people have accepted it, but the quarters from which that false narrative was coming I mean, one of your colleagues, one of our friends.
Why do you keep referring to them as my colleagues?
Because you indulge them.
Yeah,
I mean, like you indulge me, sometimes you indulge them. But no, okay, I should withdraw that.
No, but
Somebody's fixated on that domesticated pet, which has grown into a angry lion.
yes.
Now,
Three angry lions.
3 angry lions. So I had to write a polite letter saying, look, my friend, the original Sarnath lion is on the ground. Its height is 1 meter something. When you take an emblem and you have to put it on top of a parliament building, it's not on the ground level, it's at 33, 34 meters high, and it is 7.8 meters instead of 1 meter in terms of length. So you take something like this, obviously the mouth will also open up, and what you thought was a domesticated pet earlier now looks like a normal lion.
Yeah.
But they go on and on.
But I have a question for you. See, Mr. Puri, there are 78 channels part of this federation. I want to tell you about 3 years back we started the federation. We said these channels must have a voice. And we said we want to de-Lutyanize the media in India. Lutyens being not a demographic or a geographical idea, it's a state of mind. Mindset. So we are all de-Lutyanized in our mindset. Question to you, sir. These people can't even agree on how much you spent. Somebody says 20,000 crores. Anand Sharma says 25,000 crores. Somebody else, Randeep Surjewala, says 13,451 crores. They can't even agree on how much money you spent. But why do you care for them so much? In the sense, allow me to complete. One more side. Sir, this media is a very marginal media. These websites, with the respect to them, who sometimes react to you are very tiny, very small, and the only thing they enjoy is your response. And they like saying the odd thing, tweeting the odd thing. In terms of mass reach and mass impact, they're negligible. Sir, before you have 78 channels. Each of them would reach to crores of people each. There are some networks here who reach 500 million people on a monthly basis. Do you, since this is a federation of channels across India, do you feel too much emphasis is given to 1 or 2 websites or 1 or 2 channels that operate for a small and limited audience out of this city?
I should be very careful before I answer that question.
Sir.
On the importance of the media, the importance of a federation, entirely I agree with you.
Okay.
In any democracy anchored in the rule of law, which believes in free speech, clearly whatever anyone says is important. But why does it become important, and why do I need to respond? Because if I don't respond, then who was it? Goebbels, who said that if you take a lie and repeat it 1,000 times, someone might start believing it. Why I said initially that they had not thought this through, because one day the building will be ready. And then the question is how much you spent or how big is the angry lion will be clear, whether the jamun trees are there or not. I make the limited submission to you and to your view that a government which is sensitive to what is said is better off than a government which is insensitive. People say that, there are certain tendencies which are, authoritarian. I have lived 39 years in countries abroad. I was a member of the Foreign Service. I don't know of any other country at any given point of time where the ruling democratically elected government is abused so roundly and in such vicious terms, and people say that democratic things are under this thing. The only time that democratic credentials were under threat in this country is when civil liberties were curtailed in 1975. Today, anyone can get up and abuse anyone. So I think good defamation, libel laws is the answer. But for a minister of the government, and today I must say, Modi ji's ministers are like chief operating officers in departments. Now, where you have to take cognizance, even of criticism. Now you come to the question of cost. By anyone who knows anything, this is an open tendering business. So we have what are called budget estimates. And after the budget estimates, there is a system of floating tenders. Very often, the budget estimates are very realistic and the tender is close to that, but is always lower. I mean, if you can get a parliament building built, I don't remember offhand, but I think 1,200 crores.
Correct.
How is the Prime Minister's house, whenever it's built, going to cost 20,000 crores? I mean, it stands to reason. The total cost of the project, which means 8 new central secretariat buildings, all that. But we will only know when the tenders are done. We are at a very initial stage yet. We've done Kartavya Path. I think the budget estimate was what, 600 crores or something like that, and we've got it done for what, 450 or so, as far as I remember. So as I said, this is not just make-believe, but they tried to create a narrative to somehow say that during the COVID pandemic, the government was being wasteful and building. I went hoarse trying to tell them that the COVID management is a completely different thing. And look, again, the facts speak for themselves. We have, rather the system, the Prime Minister's operation have resulted in 219 crore vaccine doses to be distributed free almost to all our citizens.
True.
Whenever I go into a public debate, I ask people, is there anyone amongst you who's not had 2 shots? Not a single. And I ask, many of you have had 3 shots? Hands go up. And what was the opposition saying then? Mr. Jairam Ramesh, one of the gentlemen whose quote you read, said the government is not completed the clinical trials for the domestically produced vaccine, Covaxin. Otherwise, government must have applied its mind, government must have done something. Now, I'm not sure if that argument being advanced then was designed to facilitate the import of expensive foreign vaccines.
You're saying political parties can become a conduit or lobbies for corporates?
Well, I'll tell you, I'll give you another example. There is a Yuva Neta. Now, you don't require much imagination.
How old is he, sir?
Looks 25, maybe 50, I don't know. He turned around and said, Modi ji, हमारे बच्चों की vaccine कहाँ है? And me in my normal style, I said, राजस्थान में जहाँ आपकी सरकार है, उसके वहाँ पे आपने कूड़े में फेंक दिया, और पंजाब में आपकी सरकार है, उस समय थी, वहाँ पे आप मुनाफाखोरी कर रहे हैं. So that vaccine, when we are talking about false news, false narrative, it's not anything I deal with. Anything I deal with, it comes. Because there are...
Is it changing? Because I saw recently things are changing, like a magazine that is constantly against India and keeps abusing India, maybe to reach out to a particular audience, has now started accepting that we are one of the fastest growing economies.
You know why it's changing?
Why?
Because the reality is asserting itself. You're right.
You're right. But
I'm 100% sure.
But I get angry. I'll tell you why I get angry. I'm told this is Bloomberg, I'm not sure. Look at this headline, gentlemen. And by the way, Mr. Puri, your next answer, it will be my last question, open it up. By the way, Mr. Puri has been one of the finest diplomats representing India globally and especially in the United Nations. So there is something we need to ask him here. When this news agency says, Britain drops behind India to become the world's 6th largest economy. Look at this. Britain drops to become the 6th largest economy.
I thought the one that is becoming something is the one which is...
No, see the next line. See the next line. The former British colony jumped past the UK in 3 months to become the 5th largest economy. They are describing India after 75 as a former colony. I'm talking to you about mindsets. You've talked to me about falsities, information war internally. But I also believe there is a greater matter externally. And I believe it's time we need a counter. I truly believe this country needs a stronger counter, but I'd like your thoughts on it.
But before you throw this open, I have just one small comment.
Please.
You know, as a student of history, I can tell you that we had republics in the east of India, Vaishali, hundreds of years before Christ. We are a 7,000-year-old civilization. that British exposure. Look, I'm an admirer of the UK. I have a lot of friends, so I'm not going to that. You've studied there, so I have to be polite. But
Where?
at Oxford, don't do that.
Oxford and Cambridge.
Okay. Now, issue is the British interaction with us was only 190 years out of a total history of 7,000 years. So if we reclaim what is legitimately ours and shed aside the colonial mindset, that's something that should be celebrated. But these people are not accepting that. So I totally say it's not that India has become the 5th largest economy. I want to add something to that. India will be the 3rd largest economy in the world by 2030.
Whoa. That's a good headline to give us, sir. 3rd largest by 2030.
I have no doubt about that.
That's incredible.
I travel all around the world on my job. I don't see this kind of economic buzz that I see in India anywhere in the world.
You and Jaishankar, Mr. Jaishankar, and you are the angry young men in this government now. Angry. You are a little more angry, and he's also angry. So it's like a Amitabh Bachchan, Shashi Kapoor combination. But we are enjoying it. I enjoy it when you go to the US and elegantly lose your cool when it comes to questions about our imports of oil from Russia, for example, right? I want to know from you how the Western world responds to you.
I told a young colleague who's a member of the Foreign Service who's now working in my ministry, and he said, we are likely to come under this, that, and the other. He was thinking like pressure. I told him, young man, pressure is something, unless you're doing weight training, it's only something that can be felt in the mind. But if your mind is wired not to feel the pressure, I don't think there's anyone who can pressure Modi's India. Simply all that.
Fantastic. Okay, opening up to some questions. All right. Uday, let's rotate the mic around a bit. You got a mic rotating? Okay, I'll take 3 questions, okay? Any of the NBF members, anyone wants to put a question here? We'll put a couple of questions here. Anyone here? Anyone internally? Okay, Karthik's putting a question, then I'll take the mic behind.
Sir, Arnab just spoke about how Bloomberg had positioned India on becoming the 5th largest economy. Do you feel that the foreign media is fair to India in the way we have progressed in the last 8 years? And India's position in the world globally has become more formidable. Do you find that the global media is giving India its due credit, what it deserves?
Look, first of all, my distinguished colleague and friend in the Rajya Sabha, first of all, India is not looking for credit, point 1. Number 2, who is the foreign media? Now, most of the people I know in the foreign media who have any knowledge of India are the Indians working for the foreign media stationed in Delhi. Okay. Now, they have habitually got used to looking for that narrative where something is going wrong.
Correct.
It's been part of their DNA.
Snake charmers.
Arey bhai, wo barish aa gayi. One colleague of my dear friend, the host, one day it rained incessantly, and there were 2 or 3 inches of water which collected in that underpath and Kartavya path. He said, and this MP, who's from a state neighboring his, said, 6,000 crores down the tube. Because down the tube, is a play on words. Why? Because 3-inch barish you collect hogi, the whole central vista is destroyed. And they showed some old pictures, okay, when it was under construction. Now, the chief operating officers of the department have to swing in. So I was abroad, I called the CPWD Director General, and I said, yaar, wo kya kehta nahi, kya photo to ye hai. To maine ki ye kaun si photo? Purani thi, whatever. Nahi. And then somebody working with him was so illiterate, he turned around and said, we have just uploaded it from Google. But the uploading time is, you can upload an old photo and the time which will be shown will be when
by that time it's gone over the world.
By that time it's gone all over the world. Look, there is a sneaking streak, admiration and appreciation for what India has done. Even our worst critics will tell you India's COVID management, its healthcare sector reform, its contribution to sustainability, green energy is second to none. Plus, the economy is growing at 7%, for heaven's sake, at a time when the largest economy is in a quarter-to-quarter recession, when countries in Europe are today in financial straits. So there is admiration. Is everybody happy about it? I'm sorry, Karthika, let me tell you, in our own system, we have 10 friends, 2 do very well. तो थोड़ा सा तो, अरे ये कैसे निकल गया? वो इंडिया में एक और होता था, यार, remember? When you were much younger, when we were in the university, we used to call it the crab mentality. If a crab tries to grow up, all the others combine to pull him down.
Yeah.
So itni kharab nahi hai, but the fact of the matter is, why do you have countries lining up to visit India? Why is the Prime Minister on a personal level in a very dynamic, interactive summit diplomacy thing with all the leaders of the world? And the facts speak for themselves. There's a large country which is completely in lockdown, the major cities. And here I don't see a single one of us wearing a mask.
Sir, one more question. Just one more. Let me take it back, Karthik. One more. Pass it on to any one person, please, in the audience. Yeah, I know you've got lots of questions, but...
Lots of hands are coming up, but yes. Mr. Puri, can you just tell about this Ukraine-Russia war going on? How long it will continue and what are the political...
You should address that question.
Mr. Jaishankar, okay, we'll pass
that question
we'll take
to
another
my colleague or to
one more question.
The presidents of the two countries or the others involved in supporting them.
Sir, I come from the 6th largest economy in the world, so I'm a little ashamed to be in front of you. But may I ask, you have covered this subject of battling fake news with great, really very, very good attitude to it. Why then is it necessary for government to intervene against fake news when the truth surely should be the best tool in battling fake news?
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I'm not entirely sure whether I understood the question, but if I think I got, there may have been a sound issue involved.
What is the why does the government need to have a role at all in countering fake news? Shouldn't the truth speak up for itself?
Yes,
is more or less
truth is the best defense in all cases. Only problem is when you have the responsibility of running a government and a piece of false news goes around, social media, mobilization, etc., it can create devastating consequences. Let me give you, if somebody spreads the news that there has been a social disturbance somewhere,
right,
and the root goes away and says, well, denominationally this is happening, minority, government does not need to counter everything. Therefore, everything that's written about me or my ministry, I don't counter. I follow our host's example and say, let the facts speak for them.
Correct.
But sometimes it becomes necessary in order to contain the damage.
Well, Mr. Puri, all I'll tell you is we love the way in which you fiercely counter the narrative. More power to you. And thank you very much for coming for the NBF summit, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Puri. Thank you.
Amity has been ranked India's #1 not-for-profit private university for 10 years, with top 10 ranked institutions in management, engineering, biotech, law, masscom, telecom, hospitality, fashion and more. Yet another top ranking for Amity University.
BJP's IT cell head Amit Malviya said that he's decided to file criminal and civil proceedings against news website The Wire and alleged that they forged documents with a view to malign and tarnish his reputation. The matter pertains to meta stories which were retracted by the news website. AAP will fight elections in Gujarat with Chief Minister's face. The party will run a campaign for the face of the Chief Minister. Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal will also hold a news conference in Surat today on the same matter. In a big development, the Cyberabad police has moved the Telangana High Court now. The police has submitted a remand copy against the verdict of ACB court order which released 3 accused who allegedly attempted to poach the case. Uddhav camp MLA Kailash Patil staged protest in Osmanabad over several issues of farmers. Extending their support, the farmers joined the Uddhav camp. Meanwhile, the protest turned violent as the farmers vandalized and attacked public property as well. Mega crackdown on the PFI continues in Kerala. The National Investigation Agency has now arrested 13 absconding accused in the case. The accused was absconding and hailed from Kerala's Palakkad area. New IT rules will have profound impact on intermediaries like Twitter, Facebook, YouTube and Instagram, making them accountable to users and Government of India, thereby marking the end of rules which framed by the big tech firms which see themselves as above the sovereign laws. In wake of the development, the IT Ministry will also hold a press briefing today. And for now, moving on to more news coming in from across the country. Taking stock of the incident, the DGCA has ordered a detailed probe into the cause and suitable follow-up action that shall be taken in relation to the flight operation with regard to the Indigo flight.
Good evening. The big news yesterday was that the government had finally notified the changes to the IT rules, the IT intermediary rules, and there was a great deal of interest from all our viewers on what exactly this means in terms of citizens being able to take on big tech companies, the government of India being able to rein in the big tech companies, and whether these changes or this process of reining in or making these big tech companies accountable is only symbolic but actually real. On that and more, I have with me today Rajiv Chandrasekhar, who is the Union Minister of State for Electronics and Information Technology, as well as for skill development and entrepreneurship. He's a friend, an entrepreneur, a technocrat, and a parliamentarian with a very keen understanding of the changing technological landscape. Rajiv, welcome, and thank you for doing this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Arnab, for having me.
Now, Rajiv, this is a long, it's a long rule. It's the Information Technology brackets Intermediary Guidelines and Digital Media Ethics Code brackets closed Amendment Rules 2002. What exactly is this about? In layman terms for our viewers, what does this do?
So, Arnab, there are two background context points that probably need to be understood. Number one is that in February 2021, the IT intermediary rules were put out, and then by May 2021 they were notified, and those rules have been in force for the last year and a half, and those rules essentially laid the basis of the Government of India's expectations that the internet should be in India open, safe and trusted and accountable to all the digital Nagriks and for all the digital citizens of India. In a nutshell, what it means is that our government, our Prime Minister, who has in a sense unleashed so much of innovation and the innovation ecosystem in our country, significantly invested in Digital India since 2015, and the results are there for all of us to see, has laid out a goal and a roadmap of the next decade being a huge decade technologically from a digital economy point of view, and has set a goal of $1 trillion digital economy by 2026. Now, having said that, one of the enabling elements and almost one of the preconditions to that $1 trillion digital economy investments and jobs is that the internet in India remains safe and trusted, that it is a place where currently 80 crore Indians are connected to, use it for their lives, livelihoods, subsidies, education, health, all of that. And by 25-26, that number will be 120 crores. And it is important, therefore, that the underlying internet always is safe and trusted. Now, for most part of the last 3 decades that I have been associated with the internet, and I'm sure you have been for several years, the internet was always seen as a force for good. it connected people, it brought people and ideas together. But over the last 5-6 years, there is also an underlying trend and enough evidence that the internet also is a place where people are misusing the internet to cause user harm, to do illegalities, to in a sense, create models where there are illegal content, unlawful content that has been created and said. So to address this part of the internet, to keep it safe and trusted, we came out with the rules last year. The government came out under the leadership of our Prime Minister, the rules last year in 2021. But over the last 14-15 months, there has been considerable learning in terms of what the gaps in those rules were. And the current edition of those rules, which you have just referred to, the amended IT rules 2022, are rules that are a step forward from where we were in 2021, addressing some of the gaps that the previous rules had left unaddressed, some of the challenges that we had not foreseen. And clearly, this set of rules lays out more clear obligations on the part of the intermediaries, whom you refer to as big tech, but they're really big tech, small tech, medium tech, foreign, Indian, all of them, to lay in very clear terms what their obligations are and what their role is in this partnership between government and intermediaries in creating a safe and trusted internet.
Now, why can't the government let it be? You spoke about the need for trust, it's an open internet. The woke argument is that wherever the government comes in, it wants to interfere. Whereas in principle, the internet should be let free. The internet will not be free if the government has any supervision over it.
No, so one point I want to make very clearly is that the government is not supervising the internet. The internet, as I said, the 4 boundary conditions that the government uses, Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji's government uses for all policy making in the tech space, is that the internet must be open, i.e. free from any state or corporate influence. The internet must be safe and trusted, because there are real people who use the internet, their safety and their trust in the internet should always be maintained. And that the internet must always have a relationship of accountability between the big platforms that serve consumers and the consumers who are served by the platform. So there is accountability that is required. I want to make very clear that the internet in its current form represents both good, and there is clear evidence there is plenty of bad, plenty of user harm, plenty of illegalities, plenty of criminalities also that is proliferating on the internet. So any responsible government with a duty to its citizens will not be blind to the challenges of keeping the internet safe and trusted.
What is
and
the bad?
Therefore, these rules
if I may intervene, you mentioned twice.
Measure.
Sorry to come in, but you mentioned twice there is both good and bad.
Go ahead.
What is the bad, Rajiv? Can you specify some examples? What do you have in mind? Some will say that whatever is bad for the BJP or for the Modi government will be seen as bad by you. Is that what you mean by bad?
Yeah, no, that sounds more like a Kapil Sibal's view of all things technology. But look, we are not looking at this from an ideological point of view. Bad for the Indian citizen, bad for the digital Nagrik includes cyber security, cyber frauds, child sexual abuse, trafficking in people, pornography, invasion of others' privacy. There is a whole series of things. There are 10 conditions that have been laid down in the rules which the intermediaries are obliged to follow. For example, there should be no content that belongs to any other person. There should be no content that is obscene, pornographic, pedophilic, invasive of others' privacy, creates promotes enmity between different groups or religions, or if incites public order, is against national security, threatens the unity, integrity, defense, security. So there are many cases, Arnav, of content just being bad, content creating harm, either to a community or to an individual or to the country at large. That is established jurisprudence.
No,
there is nothing new in that. But the rules basically carve out these issues in specificity and say the intermediaries must take care that these types of content are never find place on their platform.
Now, I just want you to bring into the real life example of Elon Musk taking on Twitter, and he has his own views of free speech, right? The other people, he says, I'm a free speech absolutist, almost as if he's the last word on it. Now, there are different views about what his definition of free speech is and how applicable it is and how double-faced it is. In America itself, not everybody agrees with his definition of what is free speech. Many people believe that if Donald Trump or some people here would say if Kangana Ranaut comes back on Twitter, then it will be a violation of free speech and a violation of someone else's rights. These are all subjective things. Now, what we would want to know is whether you believe that Donald Trump's new committee, Elon Musk's new committee which he is forming on the whole issue of content moderation, he's promised to set up a new committee. You're saying that will mean that will be subject to Indian government supervision. As in, if the Twitter committee does not do its job, then the final word on this will be with the government of India.
No, I'll be very clear that these rules are not designed for company A or company B. It is essentially, I repeat again, our goal and our objective is to partner with every internet intermediary with the ultimate goal that the internet, the cyberspace, is a space where 120 crore Indians can safely come and go about the internet doing what they do. So I think it's very important to understand that this is not adversarial for any platform. These are do's and don'ts. These are rules that platforms must follow in India if they are to maintain the status of being an intermediary. An intermediary in India, under Indian law, under the IT Act, as a special protection for those who are intermediaries under Section 79, because they are immune from prosecution for any content on their platform. Every platform has the choice of whether they want to choose to be an intermediary or whether they can choose not to be an intermediary and just carry content and be responsible for the content. If they want to be an intermediary, these are the rules and regulations that the government of India has specified. And frankly, these rules and regulations apply to any platform regardless of who their owner is, what the ideology of the owner is, or what the ideology of the users of the platform are. These are rules to ensure that the internet in India, and this is our duty to the digital Nagriks of India, that the internet in India is always safe, trusted.
I have no doubt.
Like I said, accountable.
I have no doubt. But early last year, when this so-called farmers' agitation happened, Rajiv, which I believe wasn't really a farmers' agitation, there was a lot of Khalistan propaganda, which were allowed. At that point, the Ministry for Electronics and IT, or ministry specifically, had asked Twitter to delete accounts which were flagged by security agencies as accounts of Khalistan sympathizers or backed by Pakistan, which were spreading provocative content, and they were not taken down completely. And there's been this up and down battle all the time, Oh, should it be taken down? It won't be taken down. And I know it's frustrating, to deal with these companies. They have a huge bureaucracy. There was even a hashtag about Modi planning farmer genocide and enabling violence in 2021. Twitter let it happen. Twitter let it happen. Will this kind of stuff be allowed in the future?
The rules in the new amended IT rules are very, very clear on the issue of misinformation. The rules cast an absolute unambiguous obligation on intermediaries, not on the media companies that report this, but on the intermediaries that, in a sense, viralize those stories, wittingly or unwittingly. The obligation on the intermediaries is that if there is any misinformation, patently false, misleading, they have to take that content down. If they don't take the content down, they still have the option of having content reported to them and having 72 hours to take the content down. The time for ambiguity on content that is harmful to citizens, that is misleading, that is insightful, there is no more ambiguity after these rules. The intermediary, if they choose to be an intermediary, will have to follow these rules. And from all, I have already had a meeting with all the intermediaries today. They are they're very comfortable with this partnership model. And I have explained to them in extreme detail that this is not an adversarial challenge to their authority or adversarial challenge to their turf. This is about the government and platforms that are serving Indian citizens working together to make sure that the internet is safe and trusted and exempt from and is excluding all of this content that is harmful to Indian citizens and to the internet at large. So I think that era of intermediaries ducking and weaving on the issue of fake information, insightful information is over, and we are now in these new amended IT rules which cast an unambiguous obligation on intermediaries to play their part in the internet safe.
Can they say we agree with this but see you in court? You know, the approach of the social media companies has always been to take refuge under the legal process and to say, while we respect it, suppose they disagree with the decisions of the government appointed committee and say we don't agree. You are calling this Chinese propaganda. I don't think it's Chinese propaganda. It's my right to free expression. We'll see you in court and fight you under Article 19(1)(a). Can they do that?
No, look, I want to make clear again, Arnab. The 9 conditions under Rule 3(1)(b) are very specifically laid out in terms of what kind of content they are responsible for ensuring their platforms don't carry. There is nothing general, there is nothing vague, there is no word, we have even dropped the word defamatory, which was there in the earlier draft of the bill. We have dropped the word defamatory. Defamation is something that the judicial process will discover and establish or not. So therefore, the 9 conditions that the intermediaries have to meet in terms of the nature of the content that they have on their platforms or the nature of the content they cannot have on their platforms, that they have to safeguard against, that they have to enforce their own rules and guidelines, is absolutely unambiguous. There is nothing vague about it at all. If any intermediary chooses to not follow the rules, it's completely up to them. This is their choice. They lose the status of being an intermediary almost immediately. And of course, they have the right. We are a democracy. We are a country of